The Linux Action Show is created by Jupiter Broadcasting. It's sponsored by Ting. Go to last.ting.com to save off your first device or plan, and DigitalOcean. Go over to DigitalOcean.com and use our promo code LASTDigital, and then you can spin up your own Linux rig for free. Welcome to Linux Action Show, episode 369. My name is Chris.
My name is Noah.
Hey, Noah, good morning to you. Wait a minute, Noah, you're not back at your studio. Where the heck are you right now?
I'm not. I am at SouthEast LinuxFest 2015. We have been streaming live for 3 days, and it has been an absolute blast. Being able to talk with people, being able to meet with people, catching up with friends from last year that we met, and obviously talking to all the very talented and devoted speakers that are here providing great content. Of course, you're going to see that all in the show today.
Yeah, huge show coming up. Tons of exclusive interviews from SouthEast LinuxFest 2015. We're going to play those a little bit, plus a bunch of great information we've gotten from the floor. We'll tell you a little bit about the conference itself and all the great things that have come out of it. And then, of course, no, this is a regular show. I mean, come on. No, there's still, the news continues on. In the news segment this week, we're going to celebrate the new release of the Mate project. Also, some interesting landmarks in both Unity 8 and Mir's development. We'll give you just a quick update on where both of those things are at. Plus, we have interviews with folks from Canonical about those projects. And then HP's grand vision, the machine that was going to run Linux. Womp womp, they've killed it. We'll tell you what's going on with HP and why they're refactoring, but it doesn't necessarily mean that Linux as an open source is out. Stay tuned for information about that. And then in the feedback segment, we're probably going to do something a little different this week since Noah didn't collect any feedback. I just calling you out. No, it's fine, because you've been busy, so what we're going to do instead. What I was thinking we could do instead is maybe we'll just collect some people while you're there at the fest, and while we're playing interviews, Noah, you have them sit down, and we'll just do we'll do live feedback. We'll just talk to people in the show. We don't need to do emails this week. We can talk to people on the floor. So that'll be our feedback segment this week. We'll kind of just interweave it with the rest of the show. So it'll be like all in there with people. So yeah, huge show. But before we do all of that, Noah, it is
the picks.
Our picks. Yes, it is. And this one is our Runs Linux pick this week. And it's just, a bit of a sign of all of the things that are to come, a harbinger of our doom, et cetera, because this DARPA award-winning, that's $2 million award-winning robot runs Linux. It's a Korean team. They call it their DRC-Hubo, and I'm probably not saying that right. It won DARPA's Robotic Challenge Finals, one of only 3 robots to compete and complete the course on time. Now, Noah, get some of this in your face. Get ready for this. These robots, and some of them are about human size or child size. I'm going to play a video for you in a second. They're not cheap. They're 180. Okay, here's this one. The one that won. Here's the deets on the one. 180 centimeters tall. 80 kilograms. It cost between $500 and $1 million to build, and the robot has been under development since 2002. It uses a semi-autonomous design, and it runs a real-time Linux, which has been adopted for other robots just like it. So a lot of these robots that are coming out of like Oregon State University and a lot of these other robots are running the same Linux distro. It's like this distro that is rocking these robots. It's got 33 motors, which drive all these different areas. It's got like power amplifiers throughout it and feedback controllers, and the power supply for the motors has a super capacitor-based backup in case the battery fails, so the thing can still move around even after a power failure. So I'm going to play a little bit of it walking around just to kind of creep you out a bit. It's actually not all of that scary, but nonetheless, the thing has just been told to do something, and then it goes off and does it on its own. What's neat about this is they're not giving it specific instructions. Well, neat and also kind of scary. I feel like you'd get one of these for the house, Noah.
I totally get one of those for the house. In fact, I have wanted a robot for a long, long time. I needed to be able to do useful things for me. So, for example, grab a beer from the fridge, grab me a Coke, make me dinner. If I can get those things, I'd be all over it.
Dishes, take out the garbage,
exactly.
that kind of stuff. I'm down like a clown for. I would be all for that. All right, so that is the Kasitz DRC-Hubo, Hubo. And it's performing a surprise. Look at that, and it stands up. You see how it's standing up right there? That was the part I was waiting for. It just got way taller. Yeah, that's one of the things it does, is it drives around like a cute little runt, and then it stands up full freaking man size, and it's like, what's up? And it takes care of a task. Anyways.
That's awesome.
I'll have a link to the video in the show notes if you're on the audio version of the show. It's pretty intense. It's pretty intense. Hey, Noah, I want to take a moment and tell you about our first sponsor this week, DigitalOcean. And guess what? Whenever we're doing live coverage at an event, DigitalOcean always plays a pivotal role. And it's not too hard to understand why. First of all, they're super easy to get up and going. It's very intuitive. And they are an awesome cloud hosting provider dedicated to making it intuitive and easy to spin up a cloud server. You're going to get root access to a Linux box. You're going to get console, HTML5 console access. You can get started in less than 55 seconds, and pricing plans start only $5 a month. That'll get you 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, because they're all SSD! 1 CPU and a terabyte of transfer. And they got data center locations in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, and London, and one in Germany now, great one in Germany, with 40 gigabit E connections to each hypervisor, their fastest SSDs yet, and it's at a pivotal point in the exchange over there, so you're going to get great data speeds to all of Germany's neighbors as well. But let's talk about DigitalOcean's interface. Wow, does this make using DigitalOcean reasonable, fast, and practical? It's very, very intuitive, but extremely powerful. And you can do all kinds of things, from creating and obviously destroying your droplets, templating them, backing them up, taking snapshots, full DNS management, one-click installations of great open source applications, and they make it really easy to transfer them. But what you'll really love is as you become a long-time DigitalOcean customer and you want to start doing things a little faster, maybe for testing, you want to do things programmatically, it's like maybe through an automation system like Chef or Puppet. Well, DigitalOcean's API rocks. It's a really classy API, and they just revved it recently and made it even better. And you can replicate all of the functionality in their dashboard in that freaking awesome API. And I hear from so many, sometimes it's the simplest ideas. Like people will write, there are libraries that just make a quick Perl script and call the DigitalOcean. It's just a library. Call it. Just call that. Get all the functionality right there exposed to a very simple Perl script. So I get these great comments, and it makes me think, man, I should do that. I don't know, I'm too lazy. I just go into the dashboard because the dashboard's really easy and I just do snapshots in there myself. But I get emails from listeners and they automate it as part of the prescript for their package manager. So when they're we're like, whatever it is, it could be a Fedora rig, it could be an Ubuntu rig, a Debian rig, a CoreOS. As the package manager starts, a lot of them offer prescripts. Well, you just execute a Perl script in there that goes out to the DigitalOcean API, does a snapshot of your machine, makes a rev copy of it, then the package manager runs. And I've gotten a couple different examples of how people do it, and it's pretty slick. Now, there's also folks out there that just do it as part of their push, like their deployment. It's all the different ways they integrate the API to make it really awesome. Now, Noah and I, we just go old school. We often use their interface because it's super easy. And Noah, I'm betting that DigitalOcean came in handy for our remote deployment this week.
I don't think you'd be able to put into words, unless you were here experiencing it, exactly what a difference DigitalOcean played. Now, I said numerous times in the live stream, we're grateful that DigitalOcean is a sponsor for the show, but they did not they were not a sponsor of this event, right? And so everything I had to say about them over the live stream and everything I'm going to say to you right now is that's not part of the last ads. This is just pure passion. This is just practical. This is what worked. We came here, we set up the rig, we went to send data, but because Alan is away from Scale Engine, he couldn't make the changes that we needed in the time frame that we needed for you to be able to get those interviews. So had it not been from DigitalOcean, it's no exaggeration to say that you would not be playing interviews today. Yeah. You wouldn't, because I needed to have it done. I needed it done that night so I could start uploading the 6 to 12 gigabytes worth of video files, and I had to leave that go all night. So it had to be done by Friday night. I had no time the rest of the weekend.
So not only are you submitting all of the footage through a DigitalOcean droplet, and the dynamic there is, wow, I need a solution and I need it in 10 minutes. Like Noah's scenario was, I need to create a server, deploy FTP software, configure it, and have files uploading in 10 minutes. And that's where DigitalOcean solved the problem. But what you probably don't know, Noah, is on the back end here, once you get us the footage, all of the editing, all of the final clips, and all of the pre-clip, all the pre-edited and unedited, and all the transcoded versions, all of those are stored in OwnCloud that's syncing through another DigitalOcean droplet. And the reason why we do that is the speed we get from our DigitalOcean droplet. We put one in San Francisco, so it's right on the West Coast for us. I can blast those huge files out to all of the machines as fast as our Comcast connection here can pull them down. And there's I can't even get that from Dropbox, and I'm doing that on my own private DigitalOcean droplet, and I always get those kinds of speed. And so it's been so literally before we started the show, I was saving the last interview into the OwnCloud folder, sending it up to the DigitalOcean droplet, and pulling it down to my Bonobo that way because it works that well. DigitalOcean is seriously how we make a lot of these productions possible, and you can integrate it with your workflow very easily. All right.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's one of those things where it wasn't just that the service is available. It's that it's that quick to do. So, for example, I have there with some of the other VPS, they require you to have some security authentication, devices and steps to make sure that you are authorized to access these computers. Here, I had my laptop was tied up. I couldn't use my laptop to do some of this stuff. So I pulled my YubiKey out. I borrowed a laptop. I stuck my YubiKey in. I clicked on Noah's laptop from the DigitalOcean droplet, and boom, now that server has that my SSH key in it, and by plugging my YubiKey in, I was able to use a borrowed laptop. And then when I was done with it, I took my YubiKey back out, handed the laptop back to its owner, and I was not concerned at all about
nice.
There was no security loss, none, except for the fact that he knew the host name, I guess, and that was great.
DigitalOcean.com, and you got to use our promo code for us to get credit. Last Digital, that gives you a $10 credit. Trap that $5 rig twice, or for 2 months. Twice a month. No, for 2 months. You do that Last Digital. You apply that to your account. Even if you forgot to do it at checkout, you can go in there and apply it any time. Try out the rig. Play with CoreOS. They also have free BSD now as well. DigitalOcean.com. So Noah, kind of segueing from uploading those files. Every now and then we do a make good when there is a classic open source utility that we depend on for production that we have failed to actually give airtime to. Even though a lot of cases people out there know it, but there could be some noobs watching that don't know about this utility that try as much, and I'll be honest, I've tried to replace it, but I always come back to it. And you used it this week to upload the footage. What is it, Noah?
FileZilla. And FileZilla, what it is it's a graphical FTP, SFTP file client, essentially. But the thing that makes FileZilla nice is I can open up in Nautilus, and I can transfer files back and forth. I can certainly do it from the command line, but FileZilla allows me to automate a lot of this stuff. So I can save the Jupiter Broadcasting FTP server, the one that I spun up in 17 seconds or 20 seconds and had working in under a minute, that one. I can save that information inside of FileZilla, and then what I'm able to do is I can just click on the connection, it establishes it up to the server, and then I have a folder where I have stored all of the self-interviews, and I have a folder on the remote side where I would like Chris to pull them from, and I just click on a button, and it moves everything over automatically, and I can replicate that process again. So I put more interviews, fill up the drive, and I click on it, and it dumps them all over to that other folder again. And again, that's one of those tools that, because it's free and open source, it was in the repo, I was able to install it, and I was able to get it up and running and usable in 10 minutes.
Yeah, FileZilla, I mean, it's a go-to. I think that probably most of our audience is probably pretty aware of. It's kind of famous. But it is one that we sort of shamefully have not given any attention to. I mean, of course, there's others like Vi or Vim.
Right.
Or, Nano or whatever. I mean, we're not going to go crazy.
Someday.
But,
maybe when we do our retro Linux laptop, we can look at Vi.
Don't give it away.
Did I say that out loud? Did that go over the internet?
All right. So if you want to look at our past picks, go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/lastpicks. If you'd like to meet up with Noah or the crew when they're out at live events, go to meetup.com/jupiterbroadcasting for all of that. And if you'd like to submit any picks or like a great Linux desktop application or an awesome distro that doesn't get enough attention, linuxactionshow.reddit.com. All right, Noah, with the picks all done, let's do the news.
Hey, it's the news, and this episode is brought to you by
Ting.com. Go to last.ting.com. Won't you please go to last.ting.com? Look, you've got a couple of more weeks till the end of June to get $50 off your first Ting device or a $50 Ting service credit if you bring a Ting-compatible device when you go to last.ting.com. Also, though, you support the Linux Action Show, and you let them know, hey, Ting, thank you very much for keeping Last on the air and for your long-time support. We're still listening, and we still appreciate you. Last.ting.com. Go there and dig around. Look at some of the great devices Ting offers. And when you're looking at these great devices, like that $9 SIM card, CDMA or GSM, or the $77 LG Optimus Elite, keep in mind how Ting works. No contracts. You only pay for what you use. Ting takes your minutes, your messages, your megabytes. They add them up, whatever bucket you fall into at the end of the month. That's all you got to pay. It's a flat $6 for the line, plus any taxes on top of that. But that's not bad, right? $6. If you got a MiFi hotspot from Ting, it's a $6 hotspot after you buy it, because you buy the device outright. There's no contract, and it's $6 just to have data. And the best part is Ting has a crazy cool dashboard where you can just turn devices on and off, where you don't even have to pay for them. Which is, if you're just not going to use them for a while, then turn it off. They've got the first gen Moto G on there. They've also got the Moto G2 on here. Of course, they've got the Moto E. They got the Netgear Zing with the OLED touchscreen that gives you all of the information right on there. $6 hotspot once you buy it outright. Of course, they got the iPhone. They got the latest Nexus. They got the One Plus, the HTC One M8, the Moto X 2nd Gen, which is a great phone. You could buy that off contract and own it. And then the Cadillac, the Samsung Galaxy S6, just added on Ting. No contract, only pay for what you use. You own that phone outright, just like if you buy a laptop, it's yours. That's very cool. Go to last.ting.com right now. Take advantage also of Ting's no-hold customer service. You can call them at 1-855-TING-FTW anytime between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. on the weekday, and a real human being will answer the phone. In fact, I think they've maybe even recently expanded their hours. You might want to double-check on their website. I always use their website, to be honest with you. Even though they have no-hold customer service, they have like the best online community. They have a subreddit. They have they have a whole discussion thread that you can go take advantage. Like, I've been in there getting like tips on Firefox OS on the Ting network before. Like, it just blows my mind that it's all on there. They let all the discussion happen, and they're also super hip to the best Android app. So Kyra's here with her app pick of the week.
Looking for a fresh take on the original Snake? I'm Kyra, and this is the Ting app of the week.
Take it, Kyra.
Snake Rewind brings an updated look and feel to a classic mobile memory.
All right.
It has the same core gameplay you know and love, and adds some new features to keep things fresh.
Oh
Eat
man,
the super
look at
tasty
this.
snake fruit and stay alive.
No
just
way.
like back in the day. As the game progresses, you'll speed up and get longer, making it harder to control. New items on the playing field give you bonus points and extra fruit. If you accidentally hit a wall or eat yourself, you can use the new rewind mechanic to go back in time and try again. There are 10 unique levels, which can be unlocked through completing missions or spending fruit. And just to note, you can choose between 2 distinct control schemes, depending on whether you'd rather tap or swipe to move the snake. You can even compete online, link up with Facebook, and share your stats with friends.
No way.
While Snake Rewind includes in-app purchases, you'll do just fine without paying a cent. The original overhaul is free to play and is available for Android, iOS, and Windows Phone.
That's great.
Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe for more app reviews, unboxings, and more.
Last.ting.com. Go there, won't you? Support this show. Get a no-contract mobile device on CDMA or GSM, which is awesome, especially for some of the newer devices where you can switch between them. So when you go to an event like Noah does, you can just pick whichever network's going to be better and set the phone up. I love that. Last.ting.com. Big thank you to Ting for sponsoring the Linux Action Show. Okay, Noah.
So they actually, I have had Ting service the entire time I've been here. It hasn't dropped out.
Nice.
One of the other things, I have upgraded my bat phone. So I have my credit card one with me, but I also have this one. And this is a quad band GSM phone, a tri-band CDMA, I believe.
No, cool.
So it's a tiny little Samsung phone. And what it does is right now I have it on the GSM Ting network because, of course, that's easiest for me to just swap the SIM card. But it does have, I believe it does have CDMA capability as well. So my thought is I'm going to put a Ting CDMA card in it, so it'll always be active. And then if I ever need to, if I'm ever out of the country and I want to have cell phone service, I can put just a GSM SIM rented one in there, and then I'll have a world phone.
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
micro USB charging, and it's a dumb phone. It's not very
it's your bad phone.
But
and since there's no contract, it's not a big deal to just pop that on there, and the dashboard makes it crazy easy. Last.ting.com. Noah, let's talk about the new release of Mate. Mate 1.0, 1.10 is out, and it's probably the big thing for me is it's rocking early support for GTK3. Now, they're still calling it experimental, but if you're an Arch or Fedora user, there's already experimental builds of Mate using GTK3, which is nice. Theme support has been expanded to GTK 3.8 and 3.16, including client-side decorations and popover support. So some of the latest and greatest in GTK theming will be coming to the Mate desktop environment. Still a light, lean desktop. So, and I'm not a huge Mate user, but I know, Noah, you're kind of a big Mate user. What do you think? You following this?
So when they originally released Mate, I was like, la-di-da, it didn't really strike me as we have so many lightweight desktops. It just didn't really strike me as anything amazing. And then when I kind of found out they were kind of trying to target the continuation of GNOME 2, I thought, well, that's silly because now I like GNOME 3. So what the heck would I go back to GNOME 2 for? It just didn't make any sense to me. And then I had these, they were old IBM Think Centers. They were Pentium 4 boxes with 512 megs of RAM. And I remember taking one off of a shelf, and I thought, I need a lightweight desktop I can put on here. All I needed to do, I remember what it was. I was working with a place, and we just needed to play background music over an overhead speaker system. So all I needed to do was run VLC with some MP3s. And so I took it out and I thought, I wonder, what do I have laying around? So I looked, and the only thing I had was my Ubuntu Mate, I think at the time, it was 1404 actually. And I took it and I plugged it in, and that machine was so fast, Chris, that I looked at it, and I sat back and I went, I could use this. I could use this as a desktop. I could browse the internet on it. I could check my email. This is a usable experience on a computer that is 10 years old. And so and then from then on, I have really paid attention to Mate, and I've installed Arch with Mate. I've done Ubuntu Mate.
Yeah, for me, it got a lot better. It clicked for me a lot more. For some reason, when Mint shipped a Mint Mate version, it just didn't click. But when Wimpy and team came out with Ubuntu Mate Edition, based on an Ubuntu LTS. That the combination of a LTS-based distro with a super low resources desktop, like it for production and like scientific workloads, anything where you have a lot of CPU demanding tasks, but you actually still need a GUI for some reason. Man, all of a sudden, did it click for me when I saw it in that configuration? And now I'm following it a lot more closely because it opened up a whole work case for me that I didn't. I mean, I got the low end stuff because I used to deploy low end computers for schools. Like I get that. I'm not. It's not. But it doesn't personally relate to me. Like once Ubuntu Mate Edition came out for some reason, then all of a sudden became a lot more relevant to me.
Right. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about maybe I have a super powerful computer. There's still a place for Ubuntu Mate, and let me explain why. When I am doing this production rig, this is by no means a unpowerful computer. It more than has the resources to run GNOME 3, more than has the resources to run Ubuntu Unity if I wanted to. But this is essentially an appliance. I'm using it to open up OBS, and then from there, I'm doing everything inside OBS. So really, I don't want to bump the corner and have my icons, the whole desktop cascade. I don't want to have a gigantic launcher bar along the side of my desktop because I don't need those things, and I certainly don't need any sort of 3D acceleration. All I want is simple menus that I can launch the one or two programs I need to launch on the production rig, and then I want the OS to get out of my way. It's almost as if I want it to be as close to a tiling window manager without having a tiling window manager, because I still want to be able to quickly launch things and
arbitrarily position windows and resize windows for capture and.
Right, exactly. But I can do all that from Mate, and it is highly optimized, and exactly what you're talking about. I get the advantage of a lower resource operating system, and at the same time, I think that it's much, much more usable. And granted, it's somewhat of an esoteric use case, right? Like there's probably not a lot of people that want a very powerful machine with a very lightweight desktop so they can do very minimal things on that very powerful desktop. I admit that that's rare, but when you need something like that, it's amazing.
Oh, hold on, Noah. Man, what's this? Oh, God, sorry, I just stepped in a little XFCE there. Sorry. Just gotta wipe that off.
Does the rat smell?
No, I think it's alive.
You think that rat is alive?
I think so.
Okay, because everyone I've ever installed XFCE has always asked me what the dead rat on their screen is doing. So I was just wondering.
It is a weird branding choice. I'll grant you that.
Strange.
Maybe those people might prefer Ubuntu's Unity 8. Well, guess what? For them, we have an update. That's right. Unity 8 and on Mir are under development still. Now, are you ready for this? You want to hear some of these updates? We got an email that came in, and Softpedia is posting this. Numerous new features, according to Kevin Gunn, who works on it. So here's let's start with Mir, and then I'll tell you what's new in Unity. So the Mir display server has received a semantic buffer change that'll make it that'll make nested bypasses easier. Actually, here's what I do know, is it means like they have now a functional screen rotation, and also they have built in the ability better to communicate with the desktop environment when applications hang. That seems like a pretty nice thing. Also, a lot of work involved in detecting like menus and end-to-end input and render testing, so that seems like it's pretty good. Some security-related improvements went into Mir, including now Mir Snap packages.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Which we're going to have more about that in our interviews in a little bit. And also, the launcher feature parity items have been finalized in Unity 8, moving to Unity 8 now. More improvements landed in the notifications and download animations, and also the greeter has been slimmed up. And a LightLibDM library has been multi-user support.
Yeah.
So basically slaw and steady improvements, stuff that is going to be kind of necessary. Like I like support for hung application detecting. I'm liking the fact that they say also they've finalized the multimedia scope playback and improved social networking features in scopes. I mean, all these things are going to be very compelling, and I think you'll when you hear the interviews, like especially I have one coming up with Michael Hall in a little bit, so it'll put some of that stuff into context when we talk about it. So that's why it's useful to know.
Yes.
And we don't really cover it a lot here in the show because neither one of us are running these technologies at the moment, so it's hard for us to kind of keep our eye on it. But I'm glad that I think it's a good. I congratulate Canonical for pushing on. You know, I'm curious to see. I'm starting to see more and more where they're going. Like, you guys had a really cool discussion about the terminal application in Ubuntu Touch.
Yes. Yeah.
And just right there, when you hear what they're doing, you're like, okay, that actually gets me kind of excited. And it's just a terminal app. So
it does, because it is in that particular case, what you're talking about is it is a smartphone from a Linux perspective.
Yeah.
And since I come from a Linux perspective and use a smartphone as a compromise, I can really get behind a company that says this is how we do Linux. How can we make a good experience on a smartphone? That's a far better, that to me makes a lot more sense than a company who says we're going to make a smartphone and how can we make it do the things that Linux does?
Yeah, exactly. Well put. And so we'll have more of that in just a moment in the interview. Now, this is the last news story because we got so much stuff to get into Self, but this one probably isn't too surprising to you. HP announces they're killing the machine and repurposing the design. So last year, HP announced it was building the machine, a computer meant to leap as far above conventional modern systems, way beyond Xeon, way beyond the IBM mainframe. The entire system was designed to work with special purpose cores, each core working on a task, and memory resistors as a universal memory architecture, where people are really excited about the universal memory architecture. The entire system would be tied together through extensive use of photonics, I guess. Photonics. It was a bold, ambitious, and cutting edge, but now, dead. They're going to totally build up a custom Linux around it, too, and it was all very neat. But unfortunately, the chief technology officer said that the machine is going to have to be instead based on more conventional technology, and instead of a special purpose OS dubbed Linux++, which is what caught our attention, it's simply just going to run regular Linux. So there you go.
It's good.
Didn't you recently have like a big inspirational speech about HP for me? Didn't you recently?
I did. I recently gave 2 inspirational speeches. The first inspirational speech was that HP has told me numerous times off the record about all the cool things that they're doing internally to support Linux. And then I gave another thing in that I think we covered a news story. I think it was even last week or maybe the week before, about how HP, when they do their split, is going to make open source a huge priority.
Yes, right. And you've gotten some inside track stuff that you can't fully share, but leaves you feeling very positive about it.
I will tell you this. Yeah, he didn't want to go on the camera and talk about it, and so I don't want to repeat exactly what it was. But here's what I'll say. It suffice to say that HP internally likes Linux and supports Linux on the desktop far more than anyone could ever imagine. They just aren't public about it, and I don't know why. And I don't know why nobody wants to talk about it, because I don't see how that could possibly be negative. But here I heard it straight from upper level people from HP at I believe it was LinuxCon 2 years ago.
There you go. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll take your word for it. So, Noah, this is a little bit of a different show because some of the news we have this week is actually in the interviews themselves. So, as far as the actual official news segment goes, that's all the news for this week. Let's go to the interviews.
We're here at SouthEast LinuxFest 2015, and I was a little concerned when we got here that it wouldn't be quite as cool as it was last year. I'm pleasantly surprised to tell you it was way cooler than it was last year. There are more people here. Attendance is up. Speakers are better than ever. Speakers last year that gave 1 presentation are now giving 2 and 3, and that was super popular. And we're going to show you that and more coming up in a little bit. But first, let's thank System76.
System76.com, creators of machines born, created, designed to run Linux, like this brand new Serval workstation. I think it's actually a little bit smaller than the Bonobo, and you can get it in 15 and 17 inches, and it is a desktop devastator. System76 is going after the scientific and high-end computing market like a machine because they see this as being totally unaddressed, and of course these machines run Linux. Look at that, the fastest Ubuntu laptop on the planet, GeForce or Quadro GPUs, PCI Express SSD, 15 or 17-inch display, and 32 gigabytes of RAM in a laptop. I also love that. Look at that. HDMI out and 2 display ports on the back. From a production standpoint, yes, please. This might be the Bonobo replacement. 2 display ports out and an HDMI could be very, very handy for production. So you can go. System 76 has desktops, laptops, and servers built to run Linux. They'll give you lifetime support of the Ubuntu installation. And go over to system76.com. Get a machine that is meant to work with Linux. That way you don't have to fight with funky hardware. When you do a distro reload, it's not a big, long process when you want to experiment with a different distro and things like that. System76.com, tell them the Linux Action Show sent you. Now, I've got something really special I want to play. It was created with the opening of the Self live stream in mind, so it is video-centric, but if you're an audio listener, you're still going to enjoy the music that Noah put together. It's only about 40 seconds long, and it's a real treat for you video listeners, and watch closely, because you'll actually get a tour of the entire floor of Self and a peek at the production rig that Noah has built to make all of this possible. So we'll start with that clip right here. This is so epic, Noah. I loved this. This is a treat. That's epic. I love the shots of the gear too. That's really great. So that was your opening to the stream, and that's a pretty sweet way to open the stream up.
It was.
Did you?
And all of this gear, by the way, is being powered by Linux, and that video was cut together and put together on Linux. In fact, my laptop was tied up at the moment, and so I actually borrowed a laptop, installed a distro, put Lightworks on it, dropped the video in, edited, and sent it out in about 15 minutes.
That's awesome.
So it was fun. All done on Linux.
So let's start with one of Noah's favorite interviews at Self. We've got a whole bunch of them to get to, but let's start with one of Noah's favorite, Eli. Eli is a fan of the Linux Action Show. I think Noah even had dinner with him last night and his family, and Eli has converted his family over to Linux, and he manages it all. But the thing that's great about Eli is that he's 15 years old. So we'll play, that's our first interview this week.
Welcome. Going around Self, you find some of the coolest community members, and I have with us one of the coolest community members of the JB community. Eli's with me. How are you doing today, Eli?
Good.
So you are a fan of the show. You've started following the shows recently?
Yep.
And what would you say your favorite show is?
Last.
Okay, so now I was talking to you and your dad, and he was explaining that basically you have become like the resident Linux guru of your house, right?
Yep.
So how has that been, being able to support the rest of your family, and you didn't really have to convert them to Linux, right? Because they were already kind of on board with it.
Well, at first my mom didn't was worried I'd mess something up on her work computer.
Yeah, that's kind of the way it goes, right? But then eventually she kind of came around. She's like, well, hey, listen, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, and she had Windows 8 laptop, and the Wi-Fi kept going in and out, and when we installed Linux, it stopped doing that.
Oh yeah, that's not good. So when you did you run into problems with like the UEFI and the secure boot and all that stuff on Windows 8?
Yeah, when we first I tried Debian 8, and I rebooted and it didn't boot, and it sounded like we looked it up, like and it said that there was Toshiba had like modified the firmware to so it would only boot like the Windows file.
Okay.
So and there was a fix where you could rename in the boot partition to like what it was expecting from Windows, and then it would boot.
Oh, okay. So you got it to boot with Secure Boot on then?
Well, no. I turned Secure Boot off, and and then I installed it, and then it still wouldn't boot, and then I had to rename the file.
Oh, that's awesome. And she's been happy with Linux ever since then?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's great. That's really cool. So what other things what do you run? You run Linux on your laptop too then, right?
It's a desktop.
Okay, on your desktop.
Yeah, on my desktop.
Yeah. And what distro did you choose to run on your desktop? You said you chose Debian for your mother. How about yourself?
Right now I'm using Arch. I just got into Arch Linux.
How old are you?
I'm 15.
Jeez, you're 15 years old and you managed to get Arch working? I'm 29 years old and it took me 3 days to get Arch on my laptop. How long did it take you?
Well, it took me, first I tried it out in a VirtualBox.
Oh, okay.
And first like the guide that I found on the internet was only for BIOS and not UEFI. So, and then I kind of researched it for a while, and then I found a guide on for UEFI, and I got to work, and then slowly I got the programs, figured out how to get the programs that I needed. And
so have you followed our switching Angela to Linux on her yoga? Okay, so that was a huge pain because I had to do the same thing. I had to get Arch to work with UEFI, and then back when it was on the MacBook, and that was not an easy thing. And Mac isn't even the normal UEFI; it's kind of like a screwed up version of it. So it was pretty tricky. So do you see yourself sticking with Linux, indefinitely, or do you think when you get out of school and go into the workforce, you think you might go back to Windows or the Mac?
I think I'm going to stay with Linux as long as I can.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to hear. And if you're at the point where you're installing Arch at 15 years old, I can't wait to see what happens when you're 25 years old. Would you ever consider joining us for Linux Unplugged?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever done it before? You've listened to the program at least, right?
I've listened it before, but I haven't figured out how to get IRC working yet.
Oh, really? Do you ever? Oh, it's a desktop. That's right. Well, I tell you what. I will. You have my card still, right? Okay, great. Well, if you send me an email, I'd be more than happy to give you step-by-step instructions to get IRC working, because we'd love to have you in the chat room. And of course, you can always go over to jblive.tv and scroll down a little bit, and the chat room's right there. You pick your screen name and you sign right in.
Cool.
All right. Well, thanks so much for being on the program. We really appreciate having you.
Man, that's great. Come on, Noah. You feel a little kinship there, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Not to mention, like, you want to talk about nice people, like nice community people. Him and his dad were kind enough to take me out for dinner, so we went to the hotel restaurant, I guess. But you know what it's like, right? When you're at conferences or when you're away from home, eating by yourself. Yeah. It totally hoses. That, as it turns out, there were a couple other people that joined us, but it's the idea that they saw and they're like, hey, would you like to have dinner with us?
Yeah, so, it's nice.
Yeah, super nice people. And what's great was while we were there, producer Q5sys and Blaster and Sub-Zero were able to help him get set up in the IRC right there at the restaurant. Nice. So he's actually there, and it was funny because he's 15 years old and he's absorbing this technology, and I think Dad was trying to kind of figure out what's going on, how is this going, and at the same time we're getting him registered, we're getting his NIC registered, they're getting him all sorts of weird privileges up and down the IRC, and then they're trying to get a certificate for Mumble, and that's kind of when I stepped out. But super nice kid and a great interview.
One of the things that is very true when you go to a conference like this is you have some of your best conversations after the event, right? So, you go to dinner, you have a good conversation, you're in the hallway, you have a really good conversation. That's definitely true with our next interview. Heather Hall was somebody that Noah and producer Q5sys met last year, went out to dinner with, and was like, man, you are a fascinating Linux user. We would love to talk to you. Well, this year, we got a chance to sit down with Heather. I believe she has a PhD in animal genealogy or something like that. Yep. Does it all under Linux, and has been a Slackware user forever. It's a fascinating interview. It's a great chat with Heather, and that's our next one.
Welcome. So first off, I know we met last year, but I totally forgot your name. I'm really sorry. Oh, there we go. Okay, all right.
That's not a problem. My name's Heather Hall. Also, I go by Rayla on IRC. So.
Rayla in the IRC. All right. Now, are you in GeekShed or are you in Freenode?
Freenode.
Okay. All right. So here's my question. I remember standing around, and it was you and Q5Sys, and we were standing around. You were telling me about your work, and you have what is it? You have a PhD in again?
It's actually in animal science.
Animal science, right? And you study is it genomes?
Yes. So specifically horse genetics, and then recently in the past year also the Arabian oryx and the Arabian camel.
Okay.
The idea there is comparative genomics of species that are adapted to deserts. But the other part about it is that I'm sort of on the bioinformatics side as well. So it's analyzing these large genomic data sets using computers, Linux preferably.
Right. And so that's kind of what I was going to lead into is so when you search for software and you search for an operating system that can do these calculations, why Linux over macOS or Windows?
Well, initially when this was coming out, the sequencing technologies were really taking off. It was the open source community, probably the academic open source community that was really developing the tools to analyze them. I mean, each sequencer had their own proprietary software as well, but the community was really the big one about it. So initially, wasn't any for Windows. Now, if there are there are some softwares for Windows, but you would have to, one, have a Windows computer strong enough to run it, and two, pay a couple $1,000s for software. Right,
and this powerful software you're saying is available as free and open source software on the Linux platform.
Yeah, and in fact, anyone, if they wanted to, could just go and download a human genome or any sort of data set that's out there, download these tools, and just analyze DNA for the fun of it. It's all out in public databases.
Heaven's Revenge in our chat room would like to know what's the average file size for a animal genome?
So if we're just talking about the reference sequence itself, that would maybe like 2 to 2.8 gigabytes.
Okay.
And that's just the sequence. Now, if you're talking about a project where you're sequencing an animal itself, not the reference, that's going to be several gigabytes. One sequencing, the most common platform is the Illumina platform.
Okay.
One run of that provides about 2 terabytes of data, image data that's then translated into sequence. Luckily, it compresses really well, and a lot of the tools work with compressed text. But that's sort of the scale of things.
Now, you started on Slackware, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and do you continue to use Slackware for these kinds of things, or have you moved on to like Red Hat or Scientific Linux?
I initially actually tried, when I was building a lab computer, I tried using CentOS, and I had it installed, and I did not enjoy it at all.
Okay.
And then I was recommended, why don't you try Ubuntu? And it could not detect the hard drive, which was ridiculous. So
I think they fixed that now. I think Ubuntu now detects hard drives.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I just stuck with Slackware since that's what I was used to. Most recently, we've actually moved to using the supercomputing cluster at the University of Florida.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not quite sure which distro they use, but it's all cluster-based stuff.
Right.
My hands aren't on the machines as much.
Yeah, sure. So essentially, when you say that it's cluster-based, are you saying that like there's a web UI and you drop your files in, it goes back up to that cluster, gets processed, and then comes back down, or?
Two options there. So there is an open source system that tries to streamline bioinformatics for biologists called Galaxy, where there is a web interface. Now, also I have SSH access. I can SCP files.
Really?
It's some kind of batch system. I'm not entirely sure of the specifics myself, except that I have to use the qsub command to run it on a PBS cluster maybe, and set options like how long it's allowed to run before it kills it, and then get angry because I didn't know how long it had to run.
So I take it it's probably highly beneficial to you to run Linux on your laptop then, or desktop, whatever you have.
Well, for fun, yes. I've ran Linux on my laptop since 2004. It's been my main operating system of choice.
But so you say for fun, but like if you want to SCP this file up, then you have to have Linux on the client side, right? No?
There's WinSCP.
Oh, okay.
And that works just as well.
Okay. All right.
So the lab computer I use now for work, for the most part, is a Windows machine, just because it needs to interface with various University of Florida other sort of things.
Sure.
Maybe
they have it like on a domain or something.
Yeah. So access all the group files that are shared, and have to use Outlook for email because reasons. And,
because reasons. That's good. That's are there any other exciting things that are happening with the Slackware project that you're aware of?
Exciting. I mean, I
exciting in the realm of slackers.
I mean, mean, I think Slackware has been pretty nice in that it's you get what you get. Like it's nothing unexpected really comes out, at least not that I've seen. So I would say it's exciting that it's still around. I still enjoy using it, but I don't think there's been any radical changes that I'm aware of.
And so some people have called Slackware like the original Linux or the most true Linux, and I'm interested what your opinion on that is, if any.
I don't know about most true, because I mean, I feel like Linux itself, it's just whatever flavor you're into, all the different distributions that's around, but it is the longest, at this time, the longest maintained, right? So whether you would call that original, maybe not, but maybe closest to the original.
And I guess, I suppose what people are referring to, right, is this idea that there aren't other tools wrapped around it that make it that stray too far from just the GNU tools and the kernel.
So like the vanilla.
Right, as unmodified as you can get. I mean, because really, if you think about it, when we talk about Linux, there really is no such thing as Linux. I mean, Linux is just a kernel, right? Yeah. So that's useless without something else. So you keep that something else as small and as original as vanilla as possible, I guess, is what they would say.
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, I'm big on doing command line things. There was even a while I broke my X install, and so for over a month I was just using command line, because why not?
Oh no! All right. Well, thank you so much for taking time to sit down and talk with us. I remember having interesting conversations. I just didn't know exactly how to reiterate them, so I'm like, hey, maybe we just get her over here and ask. Have you ran into Q5Sys this trip?
Yeah, because his booth is actually right across from the Slacker. I'm not sure if you've seen our Slackware booth here, or I should say booth. We have a nice, comfy couch and 2 chairs around a coffee table, and the Devon IT has provided a box that we now have Slackware installed. If anyone wants to come by.
I did see that. It's on the coffee table in front of the couch. Yeah. Okay. I didn't realize that was actually a booth.
Yeah. They're Slackers, so perfect for that. So he's across from that. So I'm chatting to his laptop talk.
Does this Slackware computer that he provided you, does it have a GUI?
It actually does have a GUI installed, because by default now, of course, the installer will put it on there.
Right.
But
awesome. Well, thanks again for sitting down with us. We really appreciate it.
Yep, not a problem.
Slackware users are all over that place. No, what's with SouthEast Linux Fest and Slackware?
I don't know. I think that there are a lot of the really key people, like Alan Hicks, who contributed to the book that documented Slackware, and a lot of the people that are here. Chuck has left, but he was here earlier today, and he was one of the founding people that were around when Slackware was developed. So they've all been there through the transition of Slackware, and now it's gotten to a point where it's like a rite of passage, and they don't want to leave it. So
of course,
big Slackware community here, now, and super authentic guys.
It's what time is it there on a Sunday right now? You're the last day of the fest. 2 o'clock
on Sunday.
It's 2 o'clock.
The fest technically got over, I think, at 1, I believe.
So it's starting to clear out there. People are starting to leave now. And good.
Yeah.
Well, we'll wind down. We'll have one more interview to play. And now, of course, we've got a lot more interviews we'll feature in Linux Unplugged this week and more. But, Noah, you seem to really kick it off with Brian Smith. And he sat down with you and explained his core values, what he thinks matters in open source, and how to make it approachable. And I really enjoyed this conversation you two had. So here's Brian.
Welcome. I had the good fortune to run into Brian, the program director for FaucetCon, and he was explaining to me some of his core values and what he believes is really important in the Linux community and the free open source community at large. He's a guy that has really made a strong commitment to it, and thank you so much for taking the time to sit down for an interview. I really appreciate it. How have you been?
I've been great. How about you, buddy?
I'm doing all right. What do you think of the conference so far?
Well, it's a great event. Actually, since SouthEast Linux Fest is their first inception, I've been to every single one.
Really?
Yes, every single SouthEast Linux Fest. Yes.
So you and I were having a conversation last night about open source and the concept of community and the concept of Linux on the desktop. We kind of found that we clicked on that, and that was one of those things that you and I really agreed on. Tell me a little bit about FaucetCon.
Well, so FaucetCon stands for the Free and Open Source Software Expo and Technology Conference. It's not a Linux conference. It's not a BSD conference.
Right.
It's a conference for all things free and open source. This year will be our second annual.
Uh-huh.
It's being held November the 19th through the 21st in Orlando, Florida. Beautiful Orlando, Florida.
Yeah.
You know, we're a 3-day event, and it's a community event. It's not a huge conference. It's not, you know, it's only our second year, and so we're hoping to grow. We're hoping to grow with the community and bring. We're the only event of the such in Florida. There's no event that has a focus on free and open source besides us. So, you know.
Well, actually, really, in the country, because so there is OSCON, which is supposedly open source conference. However, you will not find a whole lot of open source software at OSCON. In fact, really, you won't find any open source operating systems at OSCON.
Okay, so I speak at OSCON on a regular basis. I'll be speaking this year, too. And OSCON is a huge conference. It is a huge conference. And, you know, it's an O'Reilly event, and it stands for Open Source Conference. They, you know, FaucetCon literally says free and open source. So that's where we feel we have to say free.
Yep.
You know, because free software is where it all started.
Yes.
And so in just focusing on open source, then I believe that a lot of the core can be lost. It's not saying that's what OSCON does, because you know, I've been quite a lot and I enjoy myself there.
Right.
But what we want to do from the grassroots point is to start off and have that message and not leave that out.
Right.
You know, in the title, in our messaging, you know, period.
Yeah, you know, I wonder, what do you think the effect on the community is when you know, as compared to OSCON, a conference like OSCON compared to FaucetCon?
Well, so what's awesome about having a new event, so OSCON is it's humongous. Like, they do well over 6,000 people. Yeah. And so they've got a very wide range. People come in from all over the world.
Oh, sure.
But we've actually had people come to FaucetCon from Poland, Russia. We had one individual come up and do a BSDA certification from Costa Rica.
Wow.
From Costa Rica. And great thing, we because it was part of our goal. We said if we had a challenge, anyone who wants to take the certification, we'll reimburse them. Yeah. And so we pay for his certification. So with us,
talk about putting your money where your mouth is. That's quite the commitment.
Yeah. Hey, man, you know, in order for, and even on our flyer it says BSD friendly. So because, you know, we want to make it a place where everyone can show up and share their ideas. Now, where we have some power is that being a new event and being, you know, in an area where where there haven't been any previous events for 5 years. We have a situation where with our messaging from the start, we're trying to infuse back in the community free software. In relation, you know, at the same time with open source, because you know, we share a lot of the same community, we share a lot of the same values. It's a thing of where we feel that we're in a better off position actually using the verbiage and paying homage to where we started. So to start up an event and to infuse that in the community, it's just like if you go to Cambridge, everybody says free software. Everybody, most people say GNU/Linux or GNU Linux, period, because you know that is actually where it all happened. You know, so in order for us to, you know, it's awesome for us to have the opportunity to start an event and to be able to infuse that, and then to have people that can go out into the world and they will still keep some of those core values of free software.
Tell me where you developed and honed your ideals and values for open source and the community. I'm wondering how somebody like you gets as entrenched as you are and as committed as you are, because it's not. I mean, here it's all over the place. I could pick 5 people and sit them down, and we'd probably all be similarly on the same page. But I go to other conferences and you don't find that. I mean, there are not that many people that are committed. And I remember when you were walking away, I don't recall the words you used, but you said something to the effect of it's good to meet somebody that is. And do you remember the words you used?
I don't remember.
Yeah, you said so. You put it very succinctly, and I was really impressed. But how did that mold? How did that come to be?
Well, so it was as simple as me sitting down in front of a system that I knew I inherited. You know, that like every day that I actually I make money from this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I empower people with these things. You have whole communities, governments that are run with this software.
Right.
So it was something that was paid forward to me. It was all I had to do was recognize it. It wasn't, you know, I was taught the minute that I downloaded the ISO.
Yeah.
You know, it was a thing of where all I did was just recognize the opportunity that was before me, and I felt like wow, like they bequeathed this thing to me.
Yeah,
This is a major undertaking.
Yeah.
And so I started to educate myself on how this thing came to be, because it is rare. Like the whole concept was rare. You know, to get free software, free as in Libre, not just gratis free, but guess what? It's also free.
Yeah.
You know, and so the fact that I could have access to enterprise level tools and systems without having to spend the money. The fact that I could do development, and I had I had an actual compiler, I had an IDE that I didn't need to pay for, you know, in order to make money, was major. You know, it was, now of course, you know, you got to learn how to use this, you know, but the fact that it was there available for me, I said, wow, like people were like in developing countries, like this is a major thing. So, you know, and then I started looking back and seeing where this came from. And so there's really, like, free software was born from, like I call it software hippies. That's right. Because it was born from that era.
Yeah.
That's where it all comes from. All of the developers before they shared their software. Yeah. That's why, you know, Stallman, you know, wrote the song, you know, join us now and share the software. Yeah. You'll be free, hackers. You'll be free. Right. You know, it's important for me. Like that is where all of the all of the ingenuity comes from, is you being able to scrutinize and you know, like, to be able to look at the code. Yeah. Like, I mean, that is major. So, you know, like I said, I got it from what was given to me, what was available.
And that is a humble way to look at things, right? Like, I think there's so many people, and this is a huge problem in the community, is that when something is given to somebody, then they come to expect it. And so when Mozilla, for example, had to introduce these pre-populated tiles inside of their tabs so that they could simply make some money because of the contract that they lost with Google, everyone freaked out. And it's like, listen, that is a free web browser you're using, by the way, which is funded by a corporation that would, or a foundation that would like to make some money, at least to pay the bills, keep the electricity on, right? And so this concept that they owe you a web browser and they can't even, you know what I mean? And so you have a very, very, very humble and pragmatic way of looking at it and saying, listen, this was given to me, so now I want to give back. And, you know, I said this earlier on the stream too. I said, in order to be a good community member, I feel like it's really important that we have to give just a little bit more than we take. And if we can do that, if you can master that, and not just maybe in open source and Linux, and just in life in general, if we can do that, you know, we literally start to improve the world just a little bit at a time.
You know, it's funny, I've got a saying that there's no such thing as free gas.
Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah, that's right.
No matter where you go, when it's time to fill up, you're going to pay.
That's
There's no haggling on the price.
Yep.
There's no questions asked. You swipe the card, give the cash, you pump, and that's it. It's time to go. Like people expecting to get everything free. And, you know, it's a thing of where Mozilla is a big company. Mozilla is a great company.
Yeah, I agree.
All of the work that they've done, you know, and what they've given to the community, you know, that should be applauded.
It should.
And at the same time, like we definitely need to understand that in order for them to grow, in order for them to exist, to make the free browser, because the reality is that just because it's available to the community doesn't mean that the community is going to completely adopt it.
Yes.
So if the Mozilla Foundation weren't there, what would the development on the browser look like?
Yeah.
You know,
and look at how many open source projects that we have that have not taken off the way that Mozilla has. And someone has to say the reason that Mozilla is so successful is at least partly because they have such a good surrounding them. And then you look at things like Red Hat, who are basically doing kind of the same thing, where they're a very large company and doing a very, very good job. And how does that play in?
You know what? So corporate governance means everything.
Yeah, really does.
So corporate governance, having corporate governance, even for smaller projects, that goes a long way in ensuring longevity. Mm-hmm. And with corporate governance, like, people've got to get paid.
Yeah.
Because like there are a lot of. And it's not easy to always pay people. Of course, it's not when you're first starting off. But once you get to the point where the project is self-sufficient, the self-sufficiency isn't. There's no autopilot for self-sufficiency.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you got to actually maintain it.
Right.
So I definitely believe that, and I definitely support Mozilla. I definitely do. In regards to having that browser available, because I think that the ecosystem of browsers, is like, we definitely need Mozilla in the ecosystem.
Oh, absolutely.
And at the same time, I use crazy browsers like Dillo. It's really lightweight, fast. I use Lynx and E-Links and
sure.
And of course I use like Ice. I just had a brain fart. One is named Koopzilla, which is, I think it's like a clone of I can't remember the name of the browser. I haven't slept a lot either.
You know what? That's a conference thing, is it not?
Yeah,
it's a conference thing.
It is, buddy. I tell you what.
I had 4 hours of sleep before we started the interview. I talked to this fine young man for like 2 hours last night, hour, 2 hours last night, something around there, but over the course of 2 hours. And he shows up today, and I drew a name blank. So I said, I'm really sorry, I forgot your name. He tells me, I sit down and I forget again. Like, it's that bad. Like, and it's because I've had 3 hours of sleep last night. I had 2 before that, 3 the night before that. Like, it's constant sleep deprivation. That's a conference thing.
Yeah. These conferences definitely can be rough on you.
Is it Iceweasel?
Iceweasel, yeah. I couldn't.
Chat room has you covered. They go, I bet he's talking about Iceweasel.
I couldn't even get it. I'm a BSD and a Debian guy, so
okay.
You gotta use that rock the Iceweasel.
Yeah,
definitely.
So if somebody was interested in FaucetCon or getting involved, where would they go? Where would they talk? And where would they learn more about you?
Well, so if you want, I'm not that interesting. To tell you the truth, FaucetCon is interesting. Okay. So if they want to learn more about FaucetCon, they can go to faucetcon.org. That's FOSSETCON.org. Our CFP's open. So if you are a speaker, if you are an aspiring speaker, if you are a beginner, and you say, hey, I learned something cool, like, I like to tell everybody else, submit a talk. It's not a thing where you've got to be this seasoned individual, and we view everyone as a professional when they submit the content, but it's just at times beginners don't believe, I don't know enough, I'm not sure. It's like, well, in you learning, like there was a process that you had to go through, and you sharing that process, others learn. So as I said, it'll be great for people to submit talks. Hey, follow us on Twitter. We'll follow you back, and we'll have a dialogue, and we'll reshare your links if you got cool projects. Things such as that. And I'm doing a talk, as I said, at OSCON this year. You can Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever the search.
Yeah, whatever the cool ones the kids are using these days.
Like search Brian Smith and how to build a botnet. I'm doing a talk at OSCON on how to build a botnet.
Who doesn't want to know how to build a botnet?
Yeah, who's not interested in the inner workings of a botnet?
I sure am. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. We really appreciate it. Are you going to be here tomorrow?
Yes, sir. I will be here tomorrow.
All right. Well, we're going to do a live broadcast tomorrow, and I'm not sure exactly how the time's going to shake out, but I'd love to take a camera over to your booth, talk to you about FaucetCon, where we can get some shots of your swag and your shirts and stuff like that. And I think you're a truly valuable member to the community. I wish more people would have your train of thought and would have your humility.
Well, thank you very much for those comments, and I also appreciated the conversation I had with you, because we're of the same cloth.
Yeah, we are. We are
the same cloth.
Yeah. We're very close-minded. That's for sure.
We both hold the ring.
Yeah. I'll go with that any day. Well, thanks a lot. We really appreciate having you.
Thanks a lot, Noah.
We're going to have to totally meet up with Brian at OSCON since we're going to be down there. I would love to see us talk on botnets.
Yeah. That it would be awesome.
Yeah, Brian he's got a great way of thinking about this kind of stuff. You know, I misspoke earlier. I said he was going to be our last interview, but actually, we still have an interview from Michael Hall from Canonical, where he talked about Ubuntu Touch, and then I want to play a tour of the Linux rig you built there too. So that's still coming up in the show. It's crazy. How is the floor there? Are you all by yourself? Are you just all lonesome now?
Yeah, I'm lonesome, and then the other part that I'm dealing with is the
teardown.
Well, I'm getting told numerous different things. So, like, the guy came over and he's like, "Can I unplug your internet yet?" And I'm like, "This would be the worst possible time for you to unplug the internet, it would seem." But let's get the Michael Hall interview is certainly an interesting thing. So we definitely have to.
We'll play that. All right, we'll run this one. It's a great chat, and it just happened this morning early on the show before last. It was like the pre-show, and Michael sat down with Noah.
Welcome. Joining me over from the Ubuntu booth is Michael Hall. Now, Michael and I had a chance to talk. Was it at Scale? Was the last time I saw you?
Yeah, it was at Scale.
Okay. How have you been?
I've been good.
All right. So first, tell me a little bit. I know that I made I got a little confused at Scale with exactly what relationship, if any, you have with the Ubuntu project in Canonical. So maybe I'll let you explain that this time.
My personal relationship?
No. Like what you're doing at the booth.
Well, I think at Scale the confusion was you were calling it the Canonical booth.
Yes, that's what it was.
And
that's
the Ubuntu booth. Yeah.
Right.
So, again, it's the Ubuntu booth. This one I actually set up so I guess it's a little bit closer to a Canonical booth than before because it's Scale, then the California loco organized all of that for us. So I just showed up and talked about phones for a little bit, but that was their booth. They ran that.
Sure.
Unfortunately, the North Carolina loco team is not very active. Like the California team was, so I came up from that. I've got Aaron Honeycutt here, who's also from the Florida Loco team, who's come up and helped me run the booth here.
Tell me, so your passion obviously is Ubuntu on the phone, right?
Yes, that's been my focus. I'm trying to get back into server stuff and the new snappy Internet of Things.
What is more interesting to you, or what's more exciting to you, or I guess what are you more heavily involved with, the snappy things or the phones?
I'm most involved in the phones right now, which are going to be snappy in the near future. So next release or two, that's going to go all to snappy. Everything's going to be snappy. Server, desktop, phone, it's all going to use snappy.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about, I noticed that you had some phones over there, and that was, they were pretty cool to look at. And it looks like Ubuntu Touch has come a long, long way since I first used it.
I've been using it for almost 2 years now, and it has come a huge way from where it was back in early 2013.
Would you the one thing that kind of stood out to me that I thought was kind of unique was I asked if there was a mail client, and they said, well, there's not a native mail client, but the community has made one, so we have one. So I mean, that to me seems like that's a really, really good path to go down. Like we have all the software we need, but it's made by the guy who made that mail client wants to make the best mail client that he can for Ubuntu Touch, and not necessarily just, well, we made a phone and so we need a mail client, so let's bang one out, right?
Right. So we did this thing called Core Apps, where when we first started doing the phone, we knew we needed more apps installed by default than we were going to be able to write ourselves. So we started this Core Apps project where we said, okay, these are the apps that we know we want to have written and we're not going to have time to write. So let's get some community people involved and get them writing that and working with them so that we give them all the resources that they need. So we've really been treating the core app developers almost as if they were employees.
Sure.
If they have a problem, they go to someone on the SDK team or the Phone Foundations team and they say, hey, look, this doesn't work. It's got to get fixed. And those people know they got to fix it. It's a core business requirement that they fix it for these community developers.
Man, that's awesome. And that goes to speak to what emphasis Canonical and Ubuntu places on the community then.
Yeah. It's an unusual relationship because we do we don't just support the community. We rely on them to produce products that our partners want. So our partners say we want this and this. It's got to have a music player. It's got to have a calendar. It's got to have a calculator, a clock. The basic stuff.
Yeah.
And we couldn't ship a phone without that. But we weren't writing those. The community was writing those. So we had to make sure that we gave them every bit of support that they needed to get those written.
What do you think what is the action plan, so to speak? So Android obviously has a huge dominance in the mobile market, and iOS has a huge dominance in the mobile market, and Windows tries to have dominance in the mobile market. But what is the plan for Ubuntu Touch to kind of try to compete with those devices?
So the thing that's going to set us apart, and we're going to first experience that later this year, is going to be convergence. It's going to be a phone or pocket-sized device that you can plug in and it becomes your desktop. There have been several attempts at this in terms of hardware for Android to do convertibles or even for Windows to do convertibles. And the hardware is there, but the software just has never been quite right for that.
Yeah.
So we think what we're doing with Unity and the fact that it's going to actually change, it'll look like a phone and work like a phone on a phone, and it'll look like a desktop and work like a desktop when you plug it in. We think that's going to be the game changer, and we think that a lot of hardware companies are going to want to ship software that actually supports the hardware that they want to make.
I'm hugely inclined to agree with you. So a couple things come to mind. So first of all, if you've ever tried to use an Android device as a desktop, like connect a mouse and keyboard, it's a horrible experience. And likewise, when Microsoft is trying to put Windows, an actual desktop, on a tablet, it's a horrible experience. So you have to maintain a mobile experience on a mobile device and a desktop experience on a desktop device. And I think that Ubuntu Touch is the way that you're talking about it, this is the first platform I can get behind. And as a small business owner, I can pitch that. My job is to sell solutions to clients that want to do these things. And if I could go in and say, listen, spend $600 on this device. It's your laptop, it's your phone, it's your desktop. When you get to the office, you put it in your dock, and now it's your desktop. When you are in your laptop, maybe you have this little mobile dock thingy that it becomes your laptop. And if you don't have any of that, it's still your phone. I think businesses can get behind that.
Yeah, I mean, most businesses, they already offered laptop docking stations.
Right.
So why lug a giant laptop around when you can just have a phone that fits in your pocket?
Yeah. Well, not only that, if you look at what business professionals are doing, geez, I mean, they're checking their email, they're writing a couple documents, and they give a lot of PowerPoint presentations or press presentations. Yeah. If that's what you're doing, you can do that on a phone.
Yeah, and actually, I got the opportunity to do that on my phone.
Did you really?
For a while. Yeah, we had a work sprint in London, and I went into the London office, and all I had was my phone. And I found that most of my daily job I can do on my phone. I've got IRC, I've got email, I've got web browser. That's mostly all I needed.
So tell me what IRC is it a well-known IRC client, or is it something that just exists on Ubuntu Touch?
It's actually not an Ubuntu Touch IRC client.
Okay.
It's IRSSI. It runs 24/7 on my home server.
Yep.
And I just SSH into it. So we've got a terminal. It works really good. It's actually a really great touch terminal too. So I just SSH into home, and I can get to my IRC client that way.
So I'm a huge IRSSI user, and in fact, if I didn't have to capture the chat room on our production rig, and if that wasn't being done in Quassel, so I'm running Quassel on here simply so that I can figure things out on my laptop and then put them on the production machine. If that wasn't the case, I would be logged into my Quassel right this minute. In fact, I might pull it up when we actually go to do Last Today. A huge Quassel fan, or a huge IRSSI fan. However, IRSSI requires you to be able to access the terminal very efficiently, because obviously you have to use shortcut commands and stuff like that. So tell me a little bit about how Ubuntu Touch is making that easier.
So the terminal, which is another one of the community developed apps. So our terminal is community developed. It's using upstream console components. The guy who made Cool Retro Terminal, if you remember that one.
Yeah.
He's actually the developer for our terminal now. So you can swipe gestures give you up and down arrows, so you can scroll back through your previous comments. You can tap on it to do tab complete, so you can start writing the first couple characters of somebody's nick, hit tab, and it auto completes it for you.
Sure.
Which is really nice. And then he's got customizable additional keys that you can add that float on top of the keyboard.
So what's the gentleman's over there in the black shirt? What's his name?
That's Aaron Honeycutt over there.
Okay, so Aaron was showing me how these things work, and it was hugely interesting. And I was looking at it, and I'm like, this is what we need. This is what I would need to be able to use a terminal on my phone, and I was just talking to the live stream about how I don't think that mobile is doing it for me right now, and I think part of that is because it's just not. I can't get my work done on it efficiently, and things like that, like where you have those shortcut keys that pop up, I feel like that is really cutting it really close. I mean, I think we're really close. When would you say that that touch would be available to people like me in the U.S.?
So Mark mentioned a month or two ago that we would be able to announce a U.S. partner in the next 6 months. So in the next 4 to 5 months now, we should have an announcement. I have no idea who it is.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm looking forward to it because I really want to buy it. I want to upgrade my Nexus 4 phone to something better, but I want to stick with Ubuntu. Yeah.
So I got to be honest with you. You are selling me on this right now. In fact, if I had a Nexus 4 right now, I'd probably be installing Ubuntu on it. If it takes off and they sign with the carrier, do you see a possibility that the carrier will customize the phone? So Verizon will put all their Verizon wear on it and theme it to be Verizon-ness, and Sprint would do the same. I mean, and you don't know who the partner is, but assuming that it's one of these companies, ABC, will ABC company make it into an ABC phone?
I would expect so. In fact, one of the design decisions that we made going into this was assuming that they're going to want to customize it.
Yeah.
And so we said, okay, if they're going to customize it, let's make sure that they can customize it without forking it, so we can keep providing updates to it, and in a well-documented way that people can undo things. So the way it works with the Ubuntu phone, we provide the base OS, and then the OEMs and the carriers, they provide a customization layer on top of that. For example, the Nexus 4 phones come with the base OS, and then it's got a custom package on top of it that installs things like the terminal and the file manager by default. The BQ phones that are in sale on Europe right now, they have a separate custom layer that installs things like Telegram and a couple of different scopes by default.
Really?
Yeah. So
I can get a phone right now that comes with Telegram by default.
Oh yeah. Well, if you're in Europe, you can. It doesn't work on 3G frequencies over here, which kind of sucks for us here in the U.S. But the Europeans get to enjoy it. They seem happy to enjoy something first for once.
Yeah. No kidding.
So yeah, we expect them to customize it, but we've given them a nice way to do it without making a terrible user experience for everybody else.
If I bought an Ubuntu Touch phone and I decided that I didn't like that user experience, is it simply a matter of removing that OEM app?
Yeah. So they can install their own apps, they can install their own scopes, and then the user can go and just uninstall those or deactivate them however they want.
How do you think that OEMs how do you think that OEMs how do you think that carriers will react to this idea that they don't have the ability to prevent users from uninstalling stuff? So, for example, take Samsung, for example. They have installed certain apps, and they want to keep those apps on the phone, and so I have to root the device to be able to take those off.
I can't really say. I haven't been involved in those conversations. For carriers, one of the main things that we're giving carriers that they don't have on Android is with scopes. So Verizon's a great example. They've got this Vcast service that they ship on all their phones, and they want people to use it, and nobody does, because if you've ever tried the Vcast stuff, it's not a real great user experience. So what we've done instead is with scopes is they can feed their data into our OS and our UI, which looks really nice. So they've got music streaming service. They can stick those sources into the music scope. So now if I was a Verizon user and I go to the music scope, I'd see my local music, I'd see what's available on Spotify if I have a Spotify client and account, and I'd see all the Vcast stuff, and it's all right there. So if I search for a specific song, it'll show me different places I can get that, and Vcast is going to be one of those.
Yeah.
So from Verizon's perspective, this is a way of getting their content to users without having to, compete with Spotify or anybody in terms of apps and interfaces.
Right. Tell me a little bit about this. So you said that you have previously been entrenched in mobile, but you're trying to move back into servers and then into Snappy.
Yeah. So Snappy is a really interesting technology that actually grew out of what we built for phones. So I'm trying to keep up with the changes that are going on there. It's really changing very quickly lately. But I've got a Raspberry Pi 2 now, which supports Snappy. So I went and saw Ruth Sully's talk about Raspberry Pi earlier this week, and it gave me some ideas of stuff to play with on that.
Tell me, so for somebody who's not available, can you explain Snappy, what exactly the technology is?
So Snappy, the best way to describe that is the same experience you have with apps on a mobile device, where you go to a store, you download an app, and everything just works. It is that that for Internet of Things, and it is that for cloud services and servers. So if you wanted to, get WordPress on a server, you just go and you say, okay, I want to go to the App Store and I want to install WordPress. So it's like apt-get also.
Sure.
But with all the confinement and security stuff that we built around apps on the phone also.
Yeah. How does that differ from containerization technologies?
So you can actually use Snappy inside of different containers. It's not. It works kind of at a different level. So one of the problems that a lot of people have with, say, Docker is that they get a Docker container from the app developer, and the app developer is not providing OS updates to that container anymore. So it gets out of date and it's got security holes in it.
Yep.
So Snappy separates them. You've got an OS image and you've got an app image. So now the app developer, they're just going to provide the app image. Or they'll provide a Docker image that has the OS image and the app image. But as long as it's using Snappy, you can go in there and you can say, okay, update the OS. And it'll update the OS image without touching the app. And the app will just keep working on the new updated OS. So now Ubuntu can ship updates with security fixes to things like Heartbleed or Shellshock or whatnot.
Yes.
And then you can put that on all of your containers without waiting for the app developers to update that.
That's great. That's outstanding. Are there any other technologies that you're involved with that you're aware of that you're excited about upcoming?
I'm involved a lot in the development of the APIs for the phone. So we've got some really neat upcoming APIs that are going to make it easier to integrate messaging services and syncing services. That's really going to open things up a lot. So we're hoping to get like Dropbox and stuff working on the phone, which is going to be nice to have.
Yeah. Oh, that would be awesome. How about things like OwnCloud and Sync Thing and stuff like that?
So the framework that they're looking into using right now is called Buteo. It's from the MER project, and it's really just a framework for syncing providers to plug into.
Okay.
So once we have that in place, then OwnCloud and Dropbox and Sync Thing, they will all be able to provide a plug-in to that framework and automatically get that working.
Now that plugin will be incumbent upon them to provide, or that's something that you guys are going to do?
Somebody can provide it. It doesn't really matter who, as long as somebody writes it. I don't know if we've got any specific ones we plan on writing.
Well, to some degree, the people from OwnCloud would best know how to get an OwnCloud client for Ubuntu Touch, right? And I mean, the people from Dropbox are the only people that are going to really be able to write a client for Dropbox.
Right. The problem they have right now is with our app confinement and our app lifecycle management on the phone is they really can't do that right now.
Yeah.
So this framework's going to let them do that. And then we've got a similar one coming for the messaging app. Our messaging app actually uses telepathy in the back end.
Yes.
But there's no way to provide plugins to that in a confined manner.
Right.
So the new framework's going to let people provide telepathy plugins that will be under confinement, so they can't do anything bad to the user.
Yeah.
But they can still then integrate with the messaging client.
Outstanding. Anything else that you want to add before we let you go?
No, I think that about covers it.
Outstanding. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to be here with us. It's awesome. We're booth buddies. We're right across from each other, so it's kind of fun to be able to look over at the Ubuntu booth. And the other thing I was going to mention is I grabbed one and then I left it somewhere. Oh yeah, here we go. These things right here that you guys provide, these little I don't know if you guys have seen this before, but it's essentially a little it's a CD of Ubuntu 14.04, and then it has text and it looks very professional. So Michael, I switch people to Linux all the time, and one of the things that I've come across is I would go to install a burn CD and people would say, was it pirated? And I can go into that whole explanation, but really they don't care about the whole open source freedom covered. They just want to get the software installed, and they just want to know if the software is pirated. And you can tell them no, but I could tell they didn't believe me. And so what's nice about these is I carry. In fact, you'll be ashamed of me because they are outdated. But I carry with me in my bag at all times a stack of Ubuntu disks, and this is the previous LTS.
It's still supported. It's LTS.
Yeah, it's supported. But so I carry a stack of these, and if I meet somebody in a plane that wants to try Linux, I can hand it to them. And the nice thing is, like inside of here, it says, what is Ubuntu, and then it explains Ubuntu, and then it says where does the software come from, where does the name come from, and then how to install it, and then what that you're perfectly allowed to copy this and give it on to people.
Right.
So I think this is great that you guys offer this. Now, I'm wondering I hope that that Canonical in the future decides that they are going to transition these into USB thumb drives.
So we have had thumb drives with Ubuntu on them that we've given away at past conferences. They go fast. They go really, really fast if you have thumb drives at a conference. So we actually, the company that we were getting them from ran out of stock, and I wasn't able to get any. So we got DVDs instead. And actually, I'll give you a new stack of 1404 DVDs. So
that'd be great.
You can hand out the latest LTS release instead.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
And I'm going to give a quick plug right now for local teams. They're our local community teams. If you are involved in one and it is active, you can actually request a box of these DVDs from Canonical, and we'll send it to your team to give away at conferences or team meetups or anything like that.
So how about if there isn't an active local team, but somebody would like to get started with one, or maybe revive one or something like that? How would somebody go about that, and how do you guys determine if one is active or inactive?
So we have a group called the Local Council that are in charge of that. They're volunteers. They're elected by people in the community, and it's their job to oversee the local teams and to help them out. So if you go to loco.ubuntu.com, there'll be a list of all of our teams there. Find the one that's local to you. See if it's active. If it's not active and nobody responds to your emails or anything, then you can go to the local council and say, I'd like to take over this team and reboot it and get it active again.
Sure.
And they'll transfer over ownership of the mailing list, the IRC, whatever other resources that team had. They'll get that transferred over to you so that you can get it started again.
Awesome. And if somebody didn't have one started at all, they could start. I assume the process is similar to start one.
Yep. So we encourage people to do countrywide or statewide teams, just to try and stop things from fragmenting too much. But if there isn't one in your area at that level and you want to start one, then all it takes is just going into Launchpad and registering a new team and saying, hey, now it exists.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. We really appreciate it, and thanks for being a good booth buddy.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That is a great chat, Noah. Good chat with Michael.
Yeah, it was super fun, and this is actually the second time I've gotten to talk to him. I got to talk to him obviously back at Scale when he was there, and then today we ran into him again and got a chance to sit down and chat.
Now, you didn't happen to have like an Ubuntu phone handed to you or anything like that. Like you didn't score like no hardware.
They didn't give me one. They let me play with it a little bit, and there is a Jupiter Broadcasting app on the Ubuntu Touch.
It's a great one. Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that until today. But.
So Noah, this next one, it's a little video-centric, but it's a tour of the Linux rig and setup you built there to do the live coverage of Self. And for you audio listeners, if you are a Tech Talk Today patron, I'll also post it up on the Patreon feed. But I'm going to play it right now. It's just it's a little shaky cam because it's Noah was doing a live Q&A with the IRC chat room, and they're like, "Show us the rig." And so Noah gets up, takes the GoPro, and walks around and walks you through the rig. But it's actually a pretty cool setup that is becoming more and more of a beast of its own. So here's the Noah's tour rig.
Welcome. So here is what I spent last night doing after we got the stream problems fixed. This is you would not believe all the cables I have to deal with. All right, this is what the back of the rack looks like. So we have decked it out. I should say I have decked it out with stickers. I don't know if I could take that Linode one off yet. Let me take the back cover off. This was a mess because I just threw everything in there when I was getting ready to leave. Because actually, you can see in the intro video, you can actually see how many cables just came flying out of this thing. But if you look in there now. This very carefully. If you look in there now we have everything is organized. So we talked before about USB buses and how they fill up with bandwidth. So we've got three. I have holding a microphone and a camera. I've got this USB bus is doing the receiver for the keyboard and mouse, and it's doing one of the cameras. This one is doing the webcam and another one of the capture cameras, and the third one is doing the audio interface, and then all of that is getting sent out over the network. The audio interface at the top here is coming out into the part of it is going out into the headphone splitter, and the other part is going out back into the broadcasting machine, and then that's being fed from this audio processor, which is getting its feed from that punch panel up at the top. So everything. I spent my time like zip tying all of these, so these are all neatly tied, so these are all neatly tied, so all these are neatly tied, and then everything is routed. Power's on this side, data and sound is on this side to hopefully cut down some of the noise. And so far, it seems to be working okay. And then because I was jealous of Chris Lass's ability to do live camera switching, I have my own little keypad there that I can switch cameras.
That's awesome. Oh, Noah. I like that. I mean, so it's sweet. So you get in there, Noah's got all the panels, you punch them in there, and you get the HDMI, the Ethernet goes in. That's a pretty slick setup.
That's been particularly helpful this week because I only have 2 capture devices. So I can either have the guest cam or my laptop active, but I can't have both. So what ends up happening is I can just reach up here, rip this cable out, plug my laptop in, and then because OBS is very, very tolerant of HDMI devices coming and going, I haven't had to go down a single time despite switching it 7-8 times a day.
Nice. Well, so I was just looking at the web stats. It looks like the peak you had during the Saturday's coverage of Selfie, you had at peak 1,500 active people watching at once of your live coverage. Yeah. So
cool.
it always shows you too, which is interesting because there's always a big disparity between how many people are in the chat room versus watching live. Yeah. And it peaked at one point around 3,000 people.
Jeez. Let me guess. That was in the early afternoon.
I don't know. I didn't break it down. I was just checking really quickly while we were playing that last bit. But that's pretty cool. So it shows that people are interested in the live event coverage, and so what we like to do in the main show is try to take some of the best of it and put it in here. And every time we go to do this, we want to evolve them a little bit and make them better and better. Like next year for sure, I want to get down there. I want to go. And you know what I really love is if you and I could walk around and not be desk bound. I think that'd be totally cool. And
we
so
can totally make that happen.
We have already planned our next live event. Do you want to tell the folks what it is?
So what we're going to end up doing is when I get done, obviously because this equipment is very heavy and very large, it's kind of expensive to ship around. So we want to minimize the amount of shipping. So we were actually, Chris and I were just chatting about where the next event is going to be. And I think we've tentatively decided it's going to be LinuxCon this year. So the Linux Foundation was kind enough to invite us out last year to come do coverage at their event. Of course, we did filming interviews, and then we did, at that time, of course, Matt was hosting. And so I just sent those back. This year, I think what we're going to do is we're going to try and get a table. We're going to set up. LinuxCon is going to be particularly doable this year because it's in Seattle, so it's right in our backyard. So I'll be coming out there, and Chris and I will go on location, and we'll be streaming live from LinuxCon. Linux Foundation, hopefully they'll be willing to have us again this year, and that should be a lot of fun. Yeah,
and the LinuxCon event kicks off August 17th, which is a Monday, Noah, and runs through the 19th. So I'm not sure if we'll be there the entire time, but we'll probably be there on the Monday that it goes live, or something to that effect. So we'll have all of that soon at meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting. So yeah, LinuxCon is going to be our next live event, and we really think the Linux Action Show is in a position to bring you guys even better coverage of this if we can keep moving forward. So one of the things I want to mention to the Linux Action Show audience is our Patreon. Patreon.com/today. Yes, it is a Tech Talk Today Patreon, but I'm using these funds to contribute to all of the network. This is my effort to create something that's more community focused and less advertised focused. Not that we would be thrilled to work with our advertisers to send us out to these events, but I love the idea of covering these community events and having that being funded by the community. And I want to do things like go with Noah out to Self. We want to be able to walk around on the floor and be able to broadcast that back to the booth and be able to plan for all these events. And honestly, I just want to be able to help contribute to the cost of shipping some of this hardware around. Patreon.com/today. If you go there, that money will make this show better. It doesn't just make Tech Talk Today better. It makes all of the shows, but specifically, this is an area of my focus right now. And one of the other areas I want to continue to push here is eventually I'd like to use this funding to have somebody back in studio, so that way when Noah and I are traveling, we can have somebody here that's switching the music on and hitting records. Not that, and you know what, Rikai went above and beyond this weekend. He really went above and beyond and helped out. But he's got other jobs to do too. So I really would like to have somebody that could maybe even like sit here and kill airtime for us. Like if we need to step away from the booth and go do an interview, somebody could be here and looking at feeds and doing coverage and all that kind of stuff. There's so much we want to expand, and we could really appreciate your contributions at patreon.com/today, because I really want to try to do this as organically, as community focused as possible.
And what is there any significance to the fact that we now have 533 patrons, Chris?
Oh, snaps, Noah. Yeah, our goal that we set a couple of weeks ago on the big show was if we hit 530, as just sort of a thank you, I'm going to fly out to Noah's house, and I'm going to try to, is your Google Glass still working, Noah?
Still working. I'm gonna put that on today, but
How's the audio on the Google Glass?
Not very good, but we'll suffice.
We can voice over. We can voice over. We'll voice over.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm going to fly out to Grand Forks, North Dakota, which turns out there's not even a direct flight, which is always a PETA. And then I'm going to tour Noah's crib. Not all of it runs Linux, but a lot of it does. We're going to find out the spots, ladies and gentlemen, that don't run Linux, and then we're going to see if we can find a solution for them.
There are no Windows boxes. There are no Mac boxes in my house.
I'll verify that. I will verify that.
Yeah, you can verify. I'm going on record and just saying that I have to use certain Windows software to program certain things, and that runs in a VM box. So that's as close as you're going to find.
A VM?
To Windows. A VM, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll see if that's
not
true
a Windows box, Chris. Not a Windows box.
So,
a Windows pretend box.
And also, I think as part of it, and Hacks is keeping us honest, I think as part of it, we got to, if not the entire episode, we got to at least record like the pick segment or something from a boat.
Yep.
So we got to make that happen. So we're going to schedule that soon. Noah is going to be traveling for a bit, so once he's done traveling, we'll get that nailed down. Patreon.com/today, though. That's the end goal. There is to really give us runway. We also have another Floss-related show in development, which is currently like in the buy hardware phase, and we're using the funding to produce another Linux and open source focused show. We're using the funding from patreon.com/today to make that work. That's in development right now. You may have seen that teased a little bit at one point in the future. So yeah, no, we got a ton of stuff coming up. LinuxCon's coming up. OSCon, we're going to be at that as well. That's just like in the short term. And then of course, I'd love to go to Flock this year, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that would be great. I don't know if that's going to happen this year, just because
I know it's super
tight, and it's going to be there's going to be two conferences that we're basically committed to, LinuxCon and OSCon, and then Flock comes just a couple weeks after that.
It's probably not doable this year, but maybe next year it might hit our list. But I'd love to go to those and even more. We want to expand it and make it more of part of the show, because we can still do the show from the road and just and work that in there and make it better than ever. So I'm really excited about the possibilities. But Noah, that was some great coverage. But that's it from Self 2015. Don't miss Linux Unplugged this week. We'll have more stuff in there, and also we'll have some exclusives in the Patreon Today feed, patreon.com/today if you're a member. But that wraps up this week's Self coverage. And that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. I just lost Noah right as we were transitioning between segments because I think they pulled the plug at Self. They're shutting it down over there. They're on the East Coast, so they're a little ahead of us. But that's good. Instead of reading emails, I wanted to tell you about how awesome Noah is. I couldn't even tell you how much money he spent to make all this possible, because the Jupiter Broadcasting Network just isn't in a financial position to do it. Just shipping, flying out there, renting a car, taking time off from his own business, and hiring other people to cover for him. I bet you could probably imagine it's probably over $5,000 of money. That's not even including the rig that he built to make it all possible. And really, it's the whole team that was out there. Blaster was there providing technical support. Q5Sys there is providing on-the-ground support, helping with the interviews in the booth, both of them. You guys who stopped by and helped them out. Editor Rikai, who worked super late and early to make sure that we could do a live broadcast Friday and Saturday and Sunday morning from a remote location. And as the network has grown, it turns out doing something like that becomes more complicated, because we have a lot more endpoints now. We have Roku and TiVo set-top boxes that we stream to, and audio real-time radio stations that we stream to, and Ustream and Scale Engine and mobile phone compatible streams, and all of that, making all of that work from a remote location took everybody working at their best. And it was pretty awesome, and especially because there was times where I just wasn't available. I had to go take care of family things. My son got hurt a little bit, and I had to go home. And they still managed to get it all done. Get the footage recorded, creating a droplet on the fly, uploading it, getting it down here and converted so it'll be ready for editing, so that way I could edit it like at midnight last night. And then and this morning, all of these pieces working together. It's an amazing crew. And I am worried that I can't ask them to do it all pro bono for much longer. I mean, there is some of them we're going to help with some of the costs for all of them, but I can't really touch it. But I can't keep asking them forever. So I do really want your support, because I want to keep doing this more. I think this is a great area for the show to grow. Patreon.com/today. The funds raised there, we'll use that to cover things like their air travel eventually, paying for shipping that Linux rig, that huge... I mean, we built something that's both a hardware and software piece that, it's awesome. It's like a mobile Linux-powered studio on the go, but it's heavy. And shipping that is expensive, it turns out. Just moving that around, I'd like to be able to cover those kinds of things, because I am eternally grateful for how hard Noah and the rest of the crew have worked on putting something like this together. And so for me to keep asking them to do that year after year after year, I feel bad. I can't. So I'd love your support there, and I'd love to go out there more and do this. I think this kind of stuff is super fascinating because so much of what we do is over the internet. It's disconnected from people. We use the results of all of these community, the code that they produce, and a lot of times we're detached in our discussions, in comment threads and on mailing lists, and things get flared and heated. And a lot of times from the outside, it looks like a hostile community. The Linux and open source community sometimes look like they're always fighting over something. Systemd.
Who knows?
But the reality is when you go to these conferences and you meet the people that are creating the software, you're talking to the person who makes this program or that project, and you see the genuine interaction, you see their passion, and you see that you can connect on these common levels. I really think it's the foundation behind the open source code. I don't think we'd have the Linux desktop, and I don't think we'd have everything we have today without these conferences. And yet they are so massively underrepresented in the coverage. We cover all of the drama, we cover all of the flame wars and all of the forks, but we don't properly cover the creation, where these ideas are born, where people have become inspired, where connections are made that then create projects. That is woefully underreported in the Linux and open source community, and it's an area where our entire team is very specifically passionate about covering. And I think giving more coverage to that, just like the BSD community has, which often puts them in a very good light, would show people that the Linux and open source community is not only very inviting, but very vibrant, and it's very creative. Which is something I think you got a sense of in the interviews today, the passion and the creativity there, but it's something I want to expand upon more. I want to get us unbound from the desk. I want us to be able to walk the floor and talk to the people and walk it for you. And I want you to be able to watch all of that live and then watch the Linux Action Show and just see the best of it. And I think I want us to be known for doing that. And I'd love your support. And thank you to Noah and the entire crew for making all of it possible, to the folks at SouthEast LinuxFest who provided the bandwidth, Jeremy and the crew there who made it all possible for us and invited us out there. You guys rock, and we really appreciate it. If you are at a fest and like to get in touch with us, email production@jupiterbroadcasting.com and shoot in your details because we want to expand our coverage more and more. We just need to chat with you first. All right, so that was it. I wanted to just get a chance to say that since I lost connection with Noah, it doesn't give him a chance to defer and put the praise on somebody else like he always does. And so we'll skip the emails this week, but I'll tell you just a couple of bits. If you'd like to get more content into the show, news, app picks, just discussion, maybe just your perspective, linuxactionshow.reddit.com. Go over to our subreddit there. We've got lots of people there. It's one of the best spots for Linux news on the internet, but it also makes this show better. linuxactionshow.reddit.com. We'll have a feedback thread for this episode as well. You can also email us. Go to jupiterbroadcasting.com, click that contact link, and choose Linux Action Show from the dropdown. And last, but definitely not least, my friends, no, join us live over jblive.tv. We do this show at 10 a.m. Pacific, except for next week. If you want to be a pro, go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. But we actually had something pretty unique. We had a chance to go to Red Hat, and the Linux Action Show was going to do a special edition of the Linux Action Show from Red Hat's office, and we're going to do the whole episode about that. We got over 3 hours of content. We're going to try to whittle it down, but still going to be at least an entire episode. We're going to skew the regular format next week, and we're going to do Linux Action Show visits Red Hat's offices, and we'll be recording that live Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific. You can go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar to get that converted to your local time zone, so you can download the show on Sunday like you always do, but next Sunday we won't have a live show. We'll be doing it on Friday instead of this week. But other than that, we're always live on Sundays. Go to jblive.tv to watch us there and hang out in the chat room. All right, everybody, thanks so much for tuning this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. We'll see you right back here next week. I spent an awkward amount of time this weekend on my phone, having to use that as my primary source of computing because I'm out of the studio. I was over at a friend's house. I'm over at my house. And I got laptops all over the place, and no laptop ends up where I'm at. And so I was laptopless for most of Saturday, putting together this show on my frickin' phone, and I wanted to go mad. I'm mad.
You wanted to have a tiny little pocket Sony computer with Linux on it. That's what you wanted.
Yeah, I did.
As long as you didn't have to play YouTube. As long as you don't have to play YouTube videos, which I still haven't gotten to work correctly. But like, I could edit show notes on it. Like, actually type in it. Like Google Docs, that worked great.
Yeah.
Heck of a lot better than doing it on my phone. Way better than doing it on my phone. You know, I was talking about that with somebody today. We were talking about the future, well, last night really. We were talking about the evolution of computing technology, and he was saying that he thought the evolution was going to be the smartphone. And I said, I completely agree. And then I was using you as an example, and I said, the smartphone is really your primary source of computing because you have your laptop But since you've moved to the new studio, it's no longer your laptop. Now it's just it is connected, and it is persistently connected, and it hasn't moved from that spot since you put it there. And so the only computer I ever see, the only consistent computer I see you take in and out of the studio is your phone. And you do seem to make that work. I just could never do that. And I think it's a difference of our job roles.
Yeah. Yeah, if I was doing IT support, I don't think I could do it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is what I use the phone as my stopgap until I'm back at one of my bases where I have a full-fledged computer. And I can get quite a bit done on the phone, mostly because a lot of work these days, when I'm not at the computer that isn't production related, is done over email, web, or Telegram.
Do you ever do this? Do you ever go to do something on your phone and you're like, screw it, I'll just wait till I get home?
Yeah.
Does that ever happen?
I mean,
so that is what bothers me. Is when I find myself doing that, that's when I know that the phone is a compromise and it's not fulfilling its purpose.
I'll tell you, well, I don't know. So you can look at it that way, or you can look at it, the phone gets me a lot. So here's what happened this weekend. I left my house, and 20 minutes after I leave my house, I get a message from Angela that the Minecraft server Droplets hard drive is full.
Of course.
So I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, so I have two routes I could take. I could log into the DigitalOcean Droplet manager, and I could expand my Droplets hard drive. I could do that from my phone using their web UI. So that, I feel like, no problem. Like, that's something that's action I could take on right then. What I didn't feel comfortable doing on my phone was my preferred route, which was to SSH into the Droplet and delete about 11 gigs worth of useless data, and then, just recover the hard drive space that way. That is where I was like, I'm going to wait till I'm at my computer to do that. And that's where I stopped. Like, I got into the DigitalOcean Droplet, I got to the resize Droplet button, I was like, instead of resizing, I know I have this 11 gigs of stuff I could just delete. I'll just wait. Yeah, but I got really close. I could have solved it. I could have done it with a resize. I mean, so the phone. So I don't look at it as a compromise. I look at it as the phone. Often gets me most of the way there, but not always.
So the trade-off is, if you don't have the phone, then you would have to take a laptop with you to make sure that you always have access to do those things. And to me, the trade-off of always having to lug a laptop around is less inconvenient to me than not being able to do certain things on my phone. And because of that, I have become acutely aware of, these are the things I just don't want to do on my phone. So how many times would I do things on my phone and I just don't really think about it, but really, if I have my choice, I'd be using a computer.
But how much is that influenced? How much is that influenced by deadline? Like, if you didn't have people waiting on you, so the way, I do often have people waiting on me, but the way I treat the phone is, the phone, if I can't resolve the issue via my phone, the phone is like my reconnaissance. I get the most information possible, so by the time I sit down in the computer, I'm basically ready to go. So I'm not starting at what's going on. I have a full picture of what's going on because of my phone. I just wasn't able to resolve it via my phone. So when I sit down at the computer, I just start working. So I feel like the phone even is useful in that regard.
Yeah. But you are different than I in that I've seen you use your phone for things even when a computer's available. Like, if I will never Telegram on my phone if my laptop's there. But you'll do that all the time. Even if it's a function of reaching down from the couch and pulling a laptop up, I think you just rather have the phone on off when you need it rather than have the laptop sit in front of you. And I'm very much not that way. If I have any way of getting, I mounted a laptop in my car just so I don't have to touch my phone, at any time. So, but it's interesting because I think the world is moving more your direction, where people are finding more and more ways to get their work done on the phone. And as that happens, I think that the ecosystem of apps on the phone continues to drastically improve because they know that people are trying to get all this stuff done on the phone.
Yeah, I can see that. I tell you, you're not going to like this answer, but part of the reason, one of the things you'll notice a lot is I use voice dictation too. I don't type it a lot.
Right. Yeah, me too.
And so that makes it a little easier for me to use the phone. And to be honest with you, the voice dictation is just a lot better on iOS too. So I've actually pulled back a little bit now that I'm using my S6 because I'm telling my wife I'm going to kill her instead of, I'm on my way home and things like that. And I don't actually think it's an iOS versus Android thing so much. I don't really give credit to Apple for making their voice dictation better. It's actually because they just licensed the Dragon Natural Speaking from Nuance directly. So it's not really Apple's secret sauce that makes the speech recognition better, but I think as a function, the fact that they're licensing the voice technology from a company that's been doing it for like 20 years versus a company that's been doing it for like 5-10 years, I think it's a more mature voice recognition. So on that led me to start using the phone more for those kinds of things, and now I'm kind of pulling back a little bit on that.
But you have to, to some degree, we have to acknowledge when things are better on the other side of the fence. Otherwise, how do we improve them? If you just, so let's just say you never had touched an iOS device, so you didn't know that it was any better on iOS. Then here's what that leads to. That leads to a bunch of Android users just going, voice dictation isn't possible on a mobile platform because it doesn't work. At least now it is possible. We just need to do it a little differently, and maybe Google can improve that over time.
I think there is actually a way to do Dragon natural speaking on Android. Like you can get the nuance. Yeah, now the only problem is it wants to do like your text messaging and stuff like that, but you can actually get the nuance speech recognition system on Android. So that's, that's not bad. It's not built, it's not baked in though.
You know, the other thing is though too is I look at it from this standpoint too. Android, like you said, has been developing 5 or 10 years, and I'd say there are, what would you say? You would be better evaluating, but 70-80% of what iOS is capable of. I mean, it works sometimes. I mean, it works most of the time. Every once in a while, it has a catastrophic fail.
You got to bet. You got to make you got to figure long term. Google's going to crush it with data, right? Just Google's going to have all this voice sampling, everybody that uses. You got to figure long term. It's the advantage will go to Google.
Well, that's my thought. Is give Google the 20 years that Dragon had, and
but then again, you know what? But Dragon and Siri, they're collecting all that stuff too and analyzing all that stuff.
They are, but I think that Google is moving. Google is moving at a more rapid pace. I think that if Apple is using Dragon and Dragon has that head start, then the technology is better because they've had that head start. But if Google is moving at a more rapid pace, eventually Google will start to not only match and exceed, but they will continue to excel ahead.
Hey, move that cord there if you could. That's just in front of your laptop.
Which one?
Just in front of your laptop lid.
This one here?
Yeah, that one. You know who I've never tried it, but you know who I'm told has the best speech recognition from 2 different people I know that own the Amazon Echo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they say the Amazon Echo has the best speech recognition. Dudes are saying so I know a guy that has a house kind of this. So picture the studio layout, right? I'm not even shitting you. He has got the Echo in the living room, and he can give it voice commands up from upstairs in his room.
Wow.
Yeah, the thing.
That kind of reminds me.
The thing picks you up from in other rooms in the house, like on a different floor, even.
Huh.
And it understands what you're saying. It's got 8 microphones in it, and you can get remote mics for it too, I guess.
That makes me start to think, what if we could incorporate stuff like that into that what's that box called? Ivy. What if we could incorporate those things into Ivy? So the thing that I didn't like about Ivy, or why I ended up returning it, was because the entire thing relied on voice dictation and commands, and she never got it right. And I don't mean like how like when you say there's problems with Android, what you mean is like 8 out of 10 times Android works fine, and then 1 out of 10 times when you least expect it, when you're right in the middle of something incredibly important and you're in maybe bad data coverage, you try and do voice dictation and Google totally just craps all over itself.
Or it might be like 7 out of 10 times. I mean, 7 out of 10 times it works. 7 out of 10 it works.
Yeah, okay. But Ivy was like 1 out of every 10 times it worked. Not like, I mean, I could be standing right next to it in a totally silent room and tell it, set an alarm for 10 minutes. And then she would get it. But anything short of that, it wouldn't understand.
Yeah, see, look, SMBFLA in the chat room says, I've got Echo and I can trigger it from three rooms over. SMBFLA, can you say Alexia? Or is it Alexa? Is that what it is? Is Alexia or Alexa? I want to try it. Is Alexia or Alexa? Anyways, I think you say, Alexa, play the Linux Action Show. And it's supposed to start playing a podcast, I think. I like that. And it does audiobooks too. It can do Audible. So that's pretty cool.
So this is actually really cool. We should talk about this on the air, actually. So this is the start. You guys can follow this. You can follow as we do this. So here's what happened. As you know, we're trying to switch to a more Linux-centric based broadcast. To do that, we're using OBS. But no one service is 100%. No streaming service is 100% reliable. Every once in a while, you're going to have problems. And so when Scale Engine has an issue, we do have backup streams at Jupiter Broadcasting that we use. In addition to that, we have an audio-only stream that's powered by an airtime server. So, and Icecast, excuse me. So what needs to happen is OBS, or the streaming, whatever the streaming computer is, has to be able to send out to multiple streams at the same time. The only way that we have been able to accomplish that so far is either to send to a local RTMP server that we use and then have that redistributed to all of the places. Or the second way we can do it is stream into Wirecast and then have Wirecast stream out to all of the individual places. So what I did was I want that functionality to exist in OBS. So Rakai pinged some of the developers and said, "Hey guys, is this possible?" And they came back and they said, "Yeah, actually, it is possible. In fact, the back end is done. We just need to you just need to make the actual text boxes that you can type in, the places you want to set the stream and add them and so on and so forth. So I went in the chat room and I said, hey, would anyone be interested in doing an open source project? And of course, Zorak, always wanting to do more things open source, more things free, and free us from freedom-hating hardware, said, I'll do it. And so we hired, not we, I independently hired Zorak to do this OBS project. So hopefully this is going to be my first foray into, we found a problem. Rakai was able to track down specifically what needs to be changed and work out with the back end OBS guys. I found an open source developer that is willing to do the work, and then I will make a contribution to him to do that. What's wrong with the first option? What's wrong with the first option? So a couple of things. One is the more layers of complexity you have with these kinds of setups, the more points of failure is and the more problems we have. So for example, when I don't go on, if I'm streaming directly to the stream like I was the first day, if that doesn't work, there are very few things that could be wrong. Either my box is not sending the stream properly, or Alan's box is not receiving the stream properly. But if I'm hitting his streaming server and that part is working, there are 2 points that we need to troubleshoot, and that's it. With this local RTMP server that I'm talking about, I am going from here to JB. JB is then going out to all 4 or 5 different places, and in the case of last, then Chris has his local switcher in the studio, and that's going to have to go into the mix. And so you've got all these things that are just kind of circling around. Now, if we can whittle that down to just OBS sends it to all of these streams, that's a great way to do it. I'll tell you why. Another thing that would be beneficial. The way that Chris has it set up, he switches between shows, and every time that happens, the stream has to come down momentarily, and then it has to go back up. If we can get this to work properly, then that won't have to happen anymore. He'll be able to do his switching between shows, and the stream will just stay constant. And stuff like today, would be a little bit more fluid too. So I think there are some huge advantages. I think that there are some huge advantages to getting this done. But really, even if it doesn't work, even if we never actually use it, let's just say for argument's sake that Chris decides I want to do a local RTMP server, or Kai decides, or whoever it is wants to do it at Jupiter Broadcasting. I don't care, because we have made OBS better. We have added a core piece of functionality that I think needs to be there, and we've done it in open source fashion.
I don't think there's any going back at this point. Come on, Noah.
No, what I was saying was, if we get, so I was explaining that I have hired Zorak to do the development so that we can send multiple streams to multiple places through OBS.
Yeah, nice.
And he has poked, or Rakai has poked the devs for the OBS project and said, hey, what needs to be done? And they said the back end is done. We just need the front end UI written, so box to place the different streams. So Zorak he was just telling me that he started, and they have merged his pull request into the ping, whatever that means. So I think what we're quickly approaching, what I was telling the chat room was, I don't care if we get all this done, if I get OBS done, because this is the first time Chris is learning about this, if that wasn't clear. Sure. If we get this done and you look at it and for whatever reason you decide you don't want to do it that way, you don't want to send from OBS out all to these individual streams, I couldn't care less, because we have contributed in a meaningful way to an open source project by providing a valuable key functionality, and we've done it in a freedom respecting open source way, and it's the first chance I've had to do that. And
like the camera obviously is right there in front of me, and then over right there, so it's over there, is the NUC with OBS open, maximized on the screen, just waiting to take over the live streams. Just sitting there, waiting.